Hello and welcome to the HWL Talks podcast, where we explore healthcare, leadership, and innovation. By the time this episode airs, this will be episode 11. So our goal really for this podcast is to inspire change, foster thought-provoking conversations that drive innovation in healthcare. Which is why I'm really excited for this guest today. He's so knowledgeable about so many topics across the spectrum and across all his great experiences. His day job, I guess, is president of Jackson Healthcare, but the list of other titles is long. So let's see if I can capture all of them. It's father, husband, son, brother to a great family. All those are true. Author, congratulations on your new book. Philanthropist, Go Beyond Profit, is founded by Shane Jackson. Actor, musician, public speaker, leadership guru, innovator. Someone I've had the pleasure of knowing for over 15 years now. Please welcome Mr. Shane Jackson to the podcast.
Wow. What an introduction.
Did I get them all?
Yeah, I think you might have even made some up that aren't even.
Well,
this is awesome.
Yeah.
I just want you to just travel around with me and introduce me that way. Let's go. Thank you.
You know what? Job accepted. Job accepted. Well, thanks for joining us today, Shane. I know that you've got a lot going on, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. From that long list of things that I mentioned, it's a lot of great stuff you've got going on. First things first, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
This is the thing. Great book. And then I just saw that your first book, Fostering Culture, is out on a second release, and you did an audiobook to go along with that.
Yeah, I did. So Fostering Culture book that came out, I guess, about 7 or 8 years ago. And it was actually really never meant to be publicly released. I wrote it for our internal audience, like for the leaders within our Jackson Healthcare companies, and had a couple of buddies that read it. And they're like, hey, I think, some other people get some out of this as well. So we put it up for sale on Amazon. And so, a fair number of people have read it since then. But with the second book, which had a much wider release, we knew it would bring a little bit of attention to the first one. So we did a second edition. I did a new foreword. We kind of cleaned a few things up and brought in some kind of new examples and all that on that book, and just released that. And I did an audio book of that one and the new one. This is the thing as well, and recorded those myself, which was actually a lot of fun. It takes. I was going to ask
you, what's it like to read your book out loud, knowing that everybody's going to hear your voice reading it? And
yeah, well, I had an absolute blast doing it. You mentioned that I've done some acting, and that's kind of just a kind of labor of love for me. I enjoy acting and music and that sort of thing, and so it is very much like acting, right? It's reading the lines and doing it in a way that has the tone and all that to get across the meeting. So I really enjoyed it, but it takes a ton of work. What's been funny though is when people come up to me and they're like, hey, I just listened to your book. And a lot of times it'll happen, like if I'm speaking and someone will, come up and just heard you speak, and I just listened to your book. And it's so weird to hear you talk now because I just listened to you talk for like 8 hours. And I'm like, yeah. So in other words, you're really tired of my voice. I get it. So anyway, that's been neat. But it's been great to see people's response to the book, print or audio, and just hear some really neat stories.
Yeah, it's great. I thumbed through it from I've read it, but I thumbed through it the other day. Looking for an example, and it struck me. It's like it's a great book of reminders. Like it's a lot of things that I'm like, I need to be doing that better. I need to be thinking about that more. I need to be, doing this and then considering that. It's like because you get lost in life sometimes, and these things kind of elude you for a while, and then you kind of have to come back and revisit and kind of get back to basics on some of this stuff. So I appreciated that tone of the book. So
yeah, thanks. Well, and I appreciate you saying that, and it's definitely the case, and because we experience that, like in life and business, everything. You just, as you just said, you get just kind of caught up in the whirlwind of all the activity and that sort of thing, and then every once in a while you're like, man, like I need to get back to doing this or these important things. And I'll tell you what's kind of been interesting, especially since putting out the new book. This is the thing this year, which is this is the thing about life, joy, and owning your purpose. Like it's a book that hits some pretty deep topics.
Mm-hmm.
So to be the guy that wrote that book and still the guy that's like, oh yeah, I need constant reminding on this stuff as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
I take my own
I mean,
advice.
I should know better. Like, I should be perfect at all this stuff, and I'm not at all. You know, I'm far from it. And so, anyway, that's been an interesting struggle for me this year.
Yeah, it's well. Congratulations on it. Do we have any acting in the pipeline? Anything we could be looking for you on the big screen?
So yes, actually, I did something in a major motion picture, recorded, or we did that like end of last year. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I don't know when that movie's coming out, but actually, kind of looking at a lot of stuff right now. I've been reading a lot of screenplays and things, and maybe
Awesome.
producing or something like that. I don't know. I just enjoy kind of being around, people that are creative like that. It's just they're really, really impressive.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of really exciting stuff going on, obviously. What is the thing right now that excites you the most? And this could be, I'll put it to you two ways, in the leadership space, but in the healthcare space. And if you can combine the two into one, bonus points. But what gets Shane Jackson most excited about what kind of the future holds and what's going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, a lot of things. And I like to talk about the writing and acting and kind of all that stuff because it's fun and there's some hobbies and passions of mine. But I mean, as you know, like my day job, I think as you described it, is working in healthcare, and I've been in healthcare to some degree my entire career, and specifically around healthcare workforce and staffing, like what HWL does, for probably many more years than I'd even really like to admit. It's a really exciting time maybe in healthcare. It's a time of turmoil, of uncertainty. And I think for a lot of reasons that are probably unique to healthcare, but a lot of reasons that are just indicative of the world that we're in right now. And, I think one of the things everyone is really trying to think through and figure out right now is how is technology, and specifically, artificial intelligence and these generative models, and like, how is that going to impact work? And for us in the healthcare industry, how is it going to impact the way that our doctors and our nurses and everybody does their work? How is it going to impact the way that that the healthcare is administered, and costs and pharmaceutical. I mean, it's just it's as I said, I guess kind of exciting, but there's just a lot of anxiety on the uncertainty on how all these things are going to come to play.
Right.
And so I don't know that anyone knows the answer on that, but everyone is just, there's so much experimentation going on right now in seeing what the possibilities are. And so, Aaron, I'm spending just a lot of time kind of thinking about that and challenging a lot of our teams and people to think about that, and trying to learn as much as I can myself.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I feel like if I ever get on LinkedIn, it's always somebody just jumped to some AI company. They're the preeminent, AI company doing blah blah blah. I'm like, how do we get preeminent so quick? Like, we've already got this all figured out already. Like, there's too much uncertainty in it for right now. But
yeah, well, it reminds me a lot. So I went to college in the 90s. And so when I was a junior in college, I got my first email address. I remember, I think it was my junior year of college. I did a presentation for one of my classes, and I did it in PowerPoint, which was actually, at the time, like a big deal. And all of my information that I sourced for the presentation was from the internet.
Whoa.
And I gave this presentation to my class, and people were fascinated. They're like, wait a minute, you got this off the internet? Like, how did you do that? And all that sort of thing, which, that was before we you can't really source anything off the internet. whatever. But anyway, but it was just like, but I mean, so my college experience was the dawn of the internet. And then I went to a grad school, I did my MBA, 99 and 2000, which was right in the middle of the .com boom.
Oh, wow.
And then bust, right? That happened in late 2000 and into 2001. And what we're going through right now reminds me a lot of that era. Mm-hmm. Even like if you look at kind of venture capital and things are going on and the insane valuations that are happening right now around a lot of these kind of startup companies and investments and all that sort of thing. It's not a perfect analogy, but a lot of it reminds me of what we went through during that time. I've got two kids in college right now, and I've told them like how excited I am for them to be in college right now, because it is similar to what I was going through and just all the change that's happening and how equipped they are, having received their education during this time, how equipped they are going to be for the future, mm-hmm. compared to a lot of people that are having a hard time catching up. And so, but to your point, you're like, okay, well, it's always something new, and how is anyone the preeminent yet? But, the companies that came out in the mid '90s, late '90s, during that .com boom, like 0.1% of 1% of them are still around. Now, ones that are Google and Amazon and some pretty big players, but there was so much hype over so many companies back during that time. And they were all gone within, 2 or 3 years. And we're in that same kind of moment right now where everyone just sees the potential. And so they're trying to just have a lot of chips on the table, right? Of trying to have a bet somewhere to maybe they find the next Google, the next Amazon, whatever, and be a part of it. And so a lot of it's very, very exciting. But the one thing I keep telling people is that when it comes to AI, we're in the slow part of the change curve, right? And if you look and everybody's kind of seeing these graphs, like the way change happens, it's like very, very slow until it starts accelerating and then accelerates at an accelerating pace. I don't know when the steep part of the curve is. Definitely in the next 10 years, probably the next 5 years, really actually probably the next 3 years. I don't know. But as much as things feel like they're changing right now, we're still in the slow part of the curve.
Yeah.
People are still figuring this stuff out. They're still experimenting, whatever. And what is to come is a pace of change that I don't think we've experienced in our lifetime, not even through the internet revolution or the mobile revolution. And so it's an exciting place to be, but it does cause a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen and what do we need to do today to be prepared for that future?
Yeah. I'd imagine for a business owner like you, who, you guys there's 20 something businesses under the brand, mm-hmm. Just the what could come of this one thing that turns into something, that's gotta be super exciting to think that you got this many cracks at the apple just to kind of really innovate something that's going to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And that's, one of the advantages we have, to your point, having a lot of different businesses and, people approach things differently, right? And so some work and some don't, but, we don't have just one crack at it. But it is also a challenge as well of how to create atmosphere, expectations, and all that for each of those businesses around how they should be thinking about innovation, how they should be thinking about AI, how they should be thinking about how they're going to deliver their solutions in the future, how they're going to run their business and all of that. Because, like I said, all of us kind of absorb this a little bit differently, and some people are more kind of early adopter of things than others are more laggard and all that. And so it's how do you do this? For me, thinking a lot about how do I kind of push our companies, how do I set expectations for our companies on what they need to be doing, given that they all have very unique businesses, resources, expertise, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's funny. I've had a couple of people say oh, what are you guys going to do with AI in the future? It's my first question is, what do you want it to do? What would you think that you would do? It could be done better with AI. because I think people like if you wanted to make a chat bot, like, yeah, we could probably do that. That's but I don't think that's what you want it to do, right? I think that you're looking for more of a grandiose, like, how does AI really affect, what we're doing?
Yeah, and I think that so my kind of personal prediction, at least for the midterm, is where we're going to see a lot of value from AI. Like, kind of early on, there's the novelty factor, like, oh wow, it can write a song for me and it can do that, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think where we're going to see, like, actually start seeing a lot of the value are specific domain tailored instances of AI that are integrated with systems where we have actionable data to use that, right? And so I do think, like, for HWL, like, this is part of where we're going, where we need to go is how are we leveraging, like, within our technology ecosystem at HWL, and HWL has tons of data, right? And so if I'm a hospital system, I'm managing all of my contingent workforce and maybe even some of my full-time workforce, kind of how we do all that, all the data. How can we leverage some of these models to help us make better decisions, faster decisions, ultimately, with agents that, once we trust them, can start making decisions on their own, so that we don't even have to touch them, right? And like, for us, even 2 years ago, when we really kind of started hearing more about this, and everybody internally was going like, Shane, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I was like, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to engage with our key vendors and ask them how they're going to be integrating this into their systems. Right. Because like, that's where, like, I just think, like, that's where so much of the meat is of the value that we can get is inside these systems. And I think you see, like, even this week, companies like Salesforce, companies like Epic, huge software company for healthcare, coming out and announcing the AI tools that they're placing inside their systems. Mm-hmm. That's taking advantage of the data they have, the workflow they have, all that, and it's doing things for the users that's going to be highly, highly valuable. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing over the next few years, is company figuring out specific use cases where this technology can really create efficiency and value. And I think that's how we got to be thinking about it as well.
Yeah, I think that's really valid, because, in my healthcare career, one thing I've always kind of noticed is that healthcare hospital systems, they're not great at being able to pull data, right? So if you want to know something very specific, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of manual labor to get that out of the system. Who owns it? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So I think you're right. If we can be good partners and understand what data they're looking for, we can then use technology to kind of drive that data, which I think is ultimately makes better decision making and makes life a lot easier for healthcare, which I think is what we all want.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare, I think, is maybe the only industry where the result of our technology implementations that we layered in has made our people less efficient instead of more efficient. Mm-hmm. Like, everything else, it's like, oh, we implement the software and now our people can handle more volume and can handle all that. Like, virtually all of the technology that we've implemented over the last certainly 15 years in healthcare has resulted in our doctors seeing fewer patients per day, not more. And our nurses having more to do because all the charting and all the data entry and all that sort of, like, we have gotten less efficient as a healthcare system over the last 15 years than we were before. And we've implemented all this technology that has had some benefit around data availability and that sort of thing. And now it's like we're, instead of putting everything on paper charts, it's there digitally, but it's made us less efficient. That hasn't happened in, like, any other industry.
Right.
I'm excited right now because I actually think, like, with AI and some of these tools, we can finally reverse that trend. And, some of the tools coming out, like, even, the stuff, like, now, as a doctor is in with a patient and you've got this agent that's listening
Yeah.
transcribing all of that, putting it into the record, and now the doctor doesn't have to go in. They look at it and go, "Yeah, that's right." Boom, next. Like, I mean, there's just some things like that I think are coming, and as you said, like enabling like even our users, like our HWL users, to actually be more efficient because the system has now gone and taken all this data and made it actionable, and it's like, hey, here's what we need to do.
Right.
And so I think that's actually really exciting and good news for our industry.
Yeah. It is good news. And I think that there's so much inefficiency in healthcare in general that it's just whatever we can be doing, even little things here and there make a big difference. So I'm excited. I'm excited. You're excited, and I'm excited that we're out here making a difference as far as that's concerned. As far as healthcare organizations go, we talked about data. One thing that from the HWL standpoint, maybe from Jackson Healthcare standpoint, how do healthcare organizations need to be looking at staffing now more than they did in the past? Because, it seemed like, everything's kind of reactionary, but I think we've learned that staffing is an integral part of everything that's happening in a hospital. But proactivity in staffing just doesn't seem to like come along with it, right? So what are your thoughts? What are your feelings on kind of how we get to a point where we're being more proactive about how we're staffing our hospitals, health systems across the country?
Yeah, well, I've been around healthcare staffing, healthcare workforce for, like I said, going on 30 years. And what I've seen during that time is how the industry really cycles. And it's largely a result of healthcare organizations having some kind of big event. Something happens, they lose a lot of people. There's a market crash, and they have limited resources. They're like, something like that creates this kind of crisis with their people, with their medical staff, with their nurses, with their therapists, with their radiologists, like whatever, all of it, right? And they go, oh, you know what? It's actually pretty important that we have the right people here at the right time to do the work and see patients. And like, it's important that we manage that in a cost-effective way. And so we need to like jump in and really pay attention to this. Yeah. And then they go in and they do some stuff and they have some marginal improvement. And then another crisis happens and they got to go deal with payer contracts, or they got to go deal with something else. And it's no longer a focus. Right. And it's just, and like, that's the way it happened. I mean, we see it happen with specific health systems and, and organizations. We see it happen as an industry. And that's what happened at a huge scale during COVID. I mean, COVID was the ultimate crisis, impacting all people, right? But like, for hospitals and health organizations, that impacted their people, and it made it front and center. I mean, like, for years, you see these organizations that interview CEOs and say, like, what are the top 5 issues that you're thinking about, like, or top 10, and like somewhere like every year between number 5 and number 10 is workforce issues, staffing.
Always,
right? Until 2021 and 2022, and all of a sudden it was number 1, right? And then in 2023, it was like, we're spending way too much on staffing. We don't have enough people here. And so every hospital, every organization feels like in the country went, hey, we got to pay a lot of attention to this, right? And now it's like, okay, yeah, we're still paying some attention over there, but this big beautiful bill just passed, and now we got to go figure out what's going to happen with our reimbursement, right? I mean, it's the way it works, and it just cycles. And I think some of it is just because people that run hospitals, run healthcare organizations, it's a very, very hard job, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of things that are happening that you have to pay attention to, and so some of it's natural. But I think also, though, it's symptomatic of any organization of needing to have the discipline to always be focused on the basics and the fundamentals of building a culture, of building systems and processes where your people feel taken care of, they feel empowered, they feel engaged, and all that sort of thing. Because when that is a project, like taking care of your people and we're focusing on that, when that's a project and not a culture, it's always going to be cyclical. Mm-hmm. Because projects change. We do this project this year, and then it's another project next year. Versus, realizing that, like, no, this is your people, especially your people that are engaging your patients and that are doing the work behind the scenes to really make this thing go. Like, that is the fundamental of our business, and that's got to be always a focus for us. And so, but it's just human nature, because we get distracted by the shiny object, or we get distracted because we got to go fight this fire and now that fire. And so, I think that's part of it. And so, like, as I get the opportunity to speak to a lot of healthcare leaders and even go speak to, a lot of hospital organizations or leadership and that sort of thing. And part of the message is, like, there is no magic wand here. Right. It's the basic fundamentals of leadership and creating a culture where people feel empowered and engaged and they want to be there. And then having some, like, operational discipline and expertise around making sure you've got the systems in place to assure that you're always staffed in the right way and that sort of thing. So anyway, that was a super long.
No. And it brings me back to something I think I said on a previous podcast, but when I was at the big Becker's meeting 2 years ago, I went to every workforce session, anything that had the word in it. And it was all about recruitment. And it was all about, we got to find more. We got to find more. We got to find more. How do we find more? There's not enough. We'll never have enough. And this year, when I went back, the only thing they were talking about was retention and ways to, drive a culture where nurses felt valued and safe and, all those kind of things. It's like, that's great to do it now, but if we'd been doing this the whole time, maybe we wouldn't be in the situation we find ourselves in today. So I just don't think those things were innate. But there's a change, right?
Yeah, and so I actually had a conversation the other day with a physician about this, and he was talking about so, like, over the last few years, you saw a lot of these, like, wellness programs, that were started and kind of popped up everywhere, and we heard a lot about clinician burnout. Right, physician burnout, nurse burnout. I mean, and COVID was the ultimate crucible. I mean, it just made it so hard. And so many of our nurses left the profession and that sort of thing. And so the response to that was like, hey, we got to focus on mental health of our providers. We got to have, and so all these wellness initiatives started, and they're well-meaning, and some of them were good. But, like, what this guy was telling me the other day, he's like, what we've seen is that most of them actually didn't do anything. Like, it didn't help. It didn't make any long-term impact. And again, it's going back to, like, if the retention of your staff is a project, hey, this year, this is what we're focused on, is retention.
Right.
First of all, it's gonna ebb and flow, and then you're gonna have problems again next year. But second of all, is that, like, if I work in an organization, I want to feel known and seen and appreciated, not because it's a project this year, but because I'm worthy and valuable enough to be seen, known, and appreciated, right? And when I see, it's like, okay, thanks for creating this program for me, but, like, what I'm really interested in is, like, transparency. And, like, actually somebody being honest with me about what's going on, about being heard, about feeling like my voice means something and it's being acted upon. And, like, and if you're not doing that hard work all the time, you're going to, you may have some projects to help for a little bit, but you're going to have problems again long term.
I think that's interesting. I mean, just the idea of, like, projectizing culture, that, like, it's just not going to work, right? It's not like, it's nice to have Nurses Week. I'm sure that every nurse appreciates the T-shirts and the free lunches and stuff. But the other 51 weeks of the year, if they don't feel like they're getting it, it's like, well, what's the point, right? They're not getting it.
And I don't want to diminish that stuff, right? I mean, we have projects all the time. Like, hey, this is an area of our culture where we've lost focus. We need to get better. We're going to put an emphasis on it. Okay. I mean, that's a good thing, right? And Nurses Week is great. Nurses ought to be celebrated, and and it kind of forces us to pay attention to, like, rituals like that. They force you to pay attention to something that you just forget about, right? And so that's great. But to your point, like, if that's all it is, it's like the 1 week a year that the nurses actually feel like they're being heard and appreciated is Nurses Week.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like, and maybe we can wrap this around back to your book, but the section about work, there's a story you tell in there about you have a friend, they put all their goals, there's 12 goals, nobody can remember them. You kind of press them on it. And it's like, maybe we just need to focus on on the thing, right?
Yeah.
So we just need to focus on what the thing is, and just so we can actually, if retention is the thing, then that's the thing, right? So we don't need to focus on the 15 other things. We just need to focus on a few things and make sure we're really good at those. So that's
it's yeah. I mean, I was funny that you remember that story, because I was with somebody the other day and they were mentioning that story because they're part of it, and they're talking about, they're like, hey, I'm still really have trouble getting it down to 3. In the book, I talk about somebody, they're planning, they have like 12 critical success factors, and it's like, these are 12 things we have to do, and nobody can even remember what they were. And I'm like, you can't focus on, you can't be good at, you can't move the needle on 12 things at once. And like, when we do strategic planning, I'm like, it's no more than 5, and ideally it's 3, because like 3 things I can remember, I can act on, I can whatever, and then once you do the 3, then you can move on to the next 3, and then eventually you kind of get through the 12 or whatever, right? But it's focusing on that. But figuring out what the 3 are, like, what are the things that really actually move the needle, is hard. It's very hard, and sometimes it's especially hard because it means you're going to have to say no to some stuff. And you're going to have to say no to some stuff that's important. And by the way, like, items 4 through 12, a lot of those are still things that have to get done. Mm-hmm. And so they got to be on somebody's top 3, but like, as in terms of an organization and like, total effort as a leader, it's so hard to figure out how to focus on what those things are that really, really move the needle.
It's funny. I remember a time long ago, because I've been with Jackson a long time, there was a list of 12 or I don't know, that long list of things that are most important to Jackson and all these things. And now that list is 3 things.
Yeah.
So,
it was there were 24 of them.
24. Wow. Yeah. I couldn't remember.
So here's the rest of the story on this. So it was values that drive our culture.
Yeah.
And so my dad, who's founder of our company, had come up with these, and they're all awesome. And by the way, I talk about almost every one of them at somewhere in my first book, right? Yeah. They're great. These are all lessons I learned from my dad. They're awesome. But so one day I called my dad and I said, hey, I was like, so tell me, what are the values that move the culture? And there was 5 categories, and then there was like, maybe, I don't know, anyway, but then, and there was like subcategories in each one. I think it totaled 24. Anyway, and I'm like, hey, what are they? And I think he got to like 7 or 8, and he couldn't even get the main 5.
Yeah.
And he wrote them, right? And I was like, Dad, how can we get our people to act on these if they don't know what they are? And I'm like, you wrote them, you can't remember. He's like, yeah, I get it. And so we went through the hard work of trying to come up with like, these are the 3 values that really drive the way that we think about the company, the way we make decisions, and all of that. Yep. Now, encapsulated in those 3 are the other, are all 24. Like they all rolled up.
Endless.
We didn't give up on treating people with respect, right? I mean, that's still a thing, but it shows up inside our value of others first. But yeah, that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. I think that we, like, just as a civilization, we need to be understanding of our own values, and maybe we all as humans, a book of reminders. We need to remind ourselves that we don't have to hit every goal, but we should make some specific goals that we're really, intent on driving to. And I think that spreads out to, across everything into healthcare. So, Shane, anything upcoming? Anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to plug or anything you've got coming up that you're want to talk about before we end?
Yeah, I don't know if we need any plugs or anything, but we're excited about the book and kind of what happened there, and I've been really blessed. We made Amazon bestseller, which is kind of cool, and I've been
congratulations
speaking all over the country.
Yeah,
this year, like a lot more than I have been, just because of the response to the book, and so excited about that. But I'm going to be this fall out at back kind of out of some healthcare conferences and stuff, kind of talking about.
It starts picking up here real quick.
Yeah, and getting back a little bit more kind of in my day job and things that I love, and like I said, it's a time of great uncertainty in healthcare, and things that are going on at the federal level, things happening at the state level is just, we've got as healthcare leaders a tremendous challenge ahead of us. I mean, we have a system that's not sustainable, and whatever you think the solution is, we all agree that there's a problem, and that for our federal government, healthcare is, we spend more on that now than the military. Like, I mean, it's just it's a broken system, and each of us has the challenge and the opportunity to be able to try to contribute to fixing our little part of it. So excited to be able to do some of that this year, and then we'll figure out next year, maybe we'll start working on another book or something.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Well, I'll collectively, we appreciate all the work you're doing and all the work that Jackson Healthcare does to help the world and help our healthcare system do a little bit better. And we look forward to the next book, maybe the next movie. Maybe somebody will see you soon at a conference somewhere. And maybe if somebody asks real nice in a LinkedIn comment, maybe I'll send them a copy, because I have two. So
love it. Yeah, can get one. And you got to give a shout out. While you're at it, go check out HWL. I mean, doing some innovative stuff. Like, speaking of helping to solve big problems in healthcare, like, come on.
Yeah,
that's what these guys do every day.
You heard it from him first. That's that's from the man himself. So, we appreciate all you're doing. We're really excited about the work we're doing at HWL, and we know we can. We'll make a difference wherever we can. I know that to be 100% true. So, big thank you to Shane Jackson. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, it's not the last time we see you on this podcast, and we look forward to everything coming down in the future.